Good afternoon. Today's Monday, September 22nd, 2025. It's 5:30 p.m. And first up on the agenda, item A, city updates by Brian McCain, Chief of Staff, 5-minute presentation.
Thank you, sir. Pueblo Fire Department, this Wednesday, September 24th at 11 a.m. Mayor Heather Graham, Chief Huber, construction partners and community members will celebrate the grand opening and uncoupling ceremony of Fire Station Number 8. This new fire station located on Jerry Murphy Road is one of the 3 new fire stations built to expand the reach of the fire department, improve response times, and assist with the growth in the Pueblo community. The new stations provide healthier living conditions, updated equipment, improved safety for the firefighters, and added training facilities. Upon conclusion of the grand opening and uncoupling ceremony, a public open house and station tours will be available for those in attendance. Excuse me. Parks and Rec. The summary of the planning process for the Pueblo City Park and Arkansas River Corridor Master Plan is up on the city's website. Please take the opportunity to review and take the survey. Your input is very important to our team and to help the planning process. We hope that you will provide comments or ideas here. This opportunity to review and comment on the various concepts of the project will be open for the next 2 weeks ending October 6th. Again, you can find that on our website at pueblo.us. Mayor Graham, Town Halls, District 1 is this Wednesday, September 24th at 5:30 p.m. at the Barkman Branch Library, Minnequaw Works Credit Union Community Room at 1300 Jerry Murphy Road. There will be a CSU Pueblo Town Hall Tuesday, October 7th at 5:30 p.m. at the Oceatus Student Center Ballroom. We do have a cleanup date coming soon. Same as before, it will be on October 18th at both the State Fairgrounds and CSU Pueblo from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. I'll have a flyer soon for everybody to review and post on social media. And then also we'll have the green waste go on to Recycle Works Stockyard Road that day. The weekly PD stats from 9/11 through 9/17, calls for service. We have 1,188 dispatched and 334 self-initiated. The specialized unit self-initiated 15 traffic, 104 community service officers, 12 parking enforcement, 4 crisis intervention team, 14 solutions outreach services, and 82 P2C online report submissions. The year-to-date numbers for loitering and curfew, 734 loitering citations, 18 loitering by minors after curfew, 67 curfew in the parks. Just to update you, our Part 1 persons crimes are down 13% from last year. Part 1 property crime is down 7% from last year. The DICE unit from the last week had 16 calls for service, 1 community-oriented policing call. They issued 41 citations with 5 trespass notices, 9 municipal warrant arrests, and 5 outside warrant arrests. And then breaking down the CSO numbers, they had 104 calls for service as primary, with 126 total calls for service, with 13 self-initiated, 22 assists, and 32 incident reports. And with that concludes my update.
Council, any questions, comments from the council? I think we're good. Okay, we're gonna move on to item agenda B. Steve Trujillo, Executive Director, 15-minute presentation. And all these folks are employees from the housing folks. Thank you guys for showing up, man. That's kind of impressive, to be honest with you. Thanks, Steve.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Mayor, and members of council. It's an honor to be with you all here tonight. Thank you for allowing us the time and the opportunity to come and just share a little bit more about what our agency has been working on over the last couple of months. It seems like just yesterday we were here, but a lot has certainly transpired. But before I turn the floor over to our chair of our commission, I do want to just recognize and thank all of the staff that we have joining us here this evening. We have another one of our commissioners, Ms. Andrea Aragon, joining us, our Deputy Director, Pat Rivas. New to the team, Mr. Jeff Reed, who is our Director of Maintenance and Facilities, just joined us today. We also have Ms. Luann Beard, who some of you have heard from in the past when we set meetings. Mr. Anthony Linan, our Director of HR. We also have right behind Ms. Andrea there, I can see Ms. Jessica Valdez, who is our Director of Contracts and Procurement, and her husband, Paul. It's a family affair. We all come out, right? We also have Eric Moore, who's our manager of the manager of our Section 8 and Inspections Department. Mr. Gary Quintana, who is our lead inspector, also serves as our liaison to the state legislative team that we have relative to housing. Ms. Monica Garcia, who is our property manager. Ms. Sandra Solis, who is our compliance manager. And in the very back there, we have Ms. Lisa White, who is our interim director of finance, and Mr. Buddy Rivas, who is the husband of Mrs. Pat Rivas and her two beautiful grandchildren. So I did that all in one breath. So that is our team. In addition to what I'll share with you here this evening, I want to publicly recognize the other team members that you don't see here, the other 70 staff members that make everything that I tell you tonight possible and make the agency run on behalf of our community and serving our clients and serving our residents. So I want to publicly thank them for their leadership, for their support, and also all of the staff that are at home charging the batteries for another amazing day starting tomorrow. And with that, as I also transition, I want to thank our commissioners because the work that they do, Ms. Sanchez and Ms. Aragon, along with others on a monthly and sometimes more than just a monthly meeting to give to the agency, giving of their time, talent, and energy to help guide us in the work that we do. So with that, I will turn it over to our chair of the commission, Ms. Phyllis Sanchez.
Hi, I'm Phyllis Sanchez, and I'm happy to be with you tonight. On behalf of the commissioners, we're
Can you turn
pleased.
your mic on?
Oh, please. Better?
You
Okay.
good?
I'm Phyllis Sanchez, and on behalf of the commissioners, we're happy to be with you tonight. I do have some exciting news to share about our 5 commissioners. In May, all of us took the NARO certification training, so each one of our commissioners is now nationally certified to serve in our capacity. Our class talked about bylaws and policies and governance and ethical items and things like that. So on behalf of the commissioners and on behalf of being the chair, I want to congratulate the commissioners for doing that. Just a little bit about myself. I'm 95% retired as of the end of last year. My whole career has been spent serving seniors. I am the founder of a private nonprofit that owns Belmont Senior Care, an assisted living community in Pueblo. We've operated for the past 33 years, and we provide affordable housing to seniors in our community. And we do that in a home-like environment. We do that in a cul-de-sac with 5 ranch-style homes built for assisted living, which is very much a home-like model versus the institutional model. So that's kind of my background. I also served on the Pueblo City Schools, now District 60 School Board for 10 years. And so I've worked with children and I've worked with families and I've worked with seniors. So I think I've gone full circle in kind of working with our community. I was born and raised in Pueblo. Happy to be with you tonight. We're happy to do a presentation. We know we have limited time, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Trill.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Appreciate it very much. So we always like to start with just a little bit about who is the Housing Authority. I think a lot of times we hear the term housing and it's easy sometimes to assume that it is just a structure with a roof. But in our case, there is a number of programs that we offer to the community of Pueblo on behalf of the federal government. First and foremost, in 1951, our agency started as a public housing entity. So still today, we have over 729 public housing units that we offer to the community. Some of these notable properties include Mesa Tower, The Vale, Minnequa Park, Montezuma, as well as scattered sites across the community. We use the term scattered sites because these are individual family homes that are all throughout the south side, the north side, the east end of town, all across our community. And so we take great pride in how we care for those particular units as we go through. And that has been a part of our mission since 1952. Over the years, HUD has evolved into different programs using different mechanisms by which to help agencies like ours develop more housing. And one of those is tax credit development or tax credit properties. And we look at that and call those managed properties, if you will. We operate over 575 of those managed properties for a total of 1,304 in our portfolio. So these are properties that are within our control. We execute the lease. Some of those particular facilities that fit under that managed property are the Rude Candy Apartments, the Ashwood Apartments, Union or Richmond, which are senior housing in partnership with the SRDA. And we also have a number of other programs that we have developed over the years, Santa Fe Crossing, for example, that are a part of our managed properties. In addition to that, we have the ability to offer 1,645 vouchers to our community. These vouchers are executed in partnership with over 450 landlords in Pueblo. So while the landlord has the lease with the tenant, we come alongside that tenant and help in providing the voucher to that landlord. And one of the things that's beneficial of this program and some of the individuals that I introduced here earlier this evening is you have a group of inspectors and a group of technicians that help work with that landlord and that particular particular tenant to help make sure that they're housed. In addition to these particular programs that offer the actual housing to our individuals, we have a number of other programs that help individuals to just move forward on their own goals. One of those, for example, is our Family Self-Sufficiency Program. That particular program, we have our coordinator who meets with our clients one-on-one. They develop a 5-year plan, and in that 5-year plan, it could be additional schooling, it could be a certificate or a degree that they want to pursue in that plan. It could be home ownership, for example. And all the while, they are putting some of their resources and some of their money into an escrow, and that is growing month by month. And at the end of that particular 5 years, they have a graduation where they receive all of those funds that they've earned over that 5-year period. And I could tell you, we've had public presentations at our commission meetings where we presented the residents with those checks. And that is a direct reflection of the hard work that they've put in along with our staff to help support them in those goals. And so we very much value partnerships in our offering of these HUD programs because we realize that it takes a village. And we certainly want to make sure that when our clients come to our office and ask a question or have an issue or face a barrier, that we are very proactive in offering them a solution and not just saying, well, you got to go over here, you got to go over there. One of the other programs that we just launched here recently in partnership with the Pueblo Clerk and Recorder was the Kaylee Morgan Project, which is a program designed and geared towards allowing residents to have an area where their most precious documents, birth certificates, social security cards, et cetera, those items that are so pivotal to being used in a housing process, where they have a safe area to now house those, and agencies like ours can have that partnership and that confidentiality to work on behalf of the client to reduce the time spent in chasing down some of those documents. They may have lost those for various reasons. I mean, if you think about it, it makes you think if you were asked for those today, where are those saved at home? Where would you go to find those? You'd have to locate them. So this is another example of how we want to be innovative and creative and trying to make sure that we are meeting our residents and meeting our clients where they are and developing those partnerships to help ensure that we care for the entire family. One of the things that I think is most notable is that over the last year, or excuse me, we serve over 5,024 residents as a quick snapshot. So as Ms. Sanchez alluded to, while that's residents on a lease or in a program, we look at the entire family and how we were able to help support them in their journey, if that is pursuing higher education or if that is pursuing the next job or a promotion or whatever that might be, or just stabilizing their housing situation. That is certainly a key and a priority to what we do within the agency. And again, a reflection of our staff and the incredible work that they do on a daily basis. So I want to let you know a little bit about 2024 specifically. You have at your place setting the report that was generated and was reviewed in July of this year with our board at our annual meeting. This particular report, a few of the highlights that I want to draw out for you. In that year's snapshot, we completed over 9,100 work orders. And what I look at in this particular statistic is that is work that our staff, specifically our maintenance staff, that I want to recognize publicly for their incredible skill set, and from everything from painting to drywall to plumbing, our staff handles internally. And so these work orders reflect that. And to me, it's an investment of time taken to not only fix the properties, but also look at how do we ensure we are taking care of them so that they can continue to serve generations of our community that may need us at some point in time. So with over 9,100 work orders completed and tracked in our system, I think that is a notable accomplishment for our staff while still doing all that they have to. In 2024 specifically, we were able to recognize a full year of operation, and into 25 rather, a full year of operation of our most recent development, which is the Crawford Townhomes. Whenever you put a new development like this together, you have to have a year of what's called stabilization, meaning it was fully occupied, the residents were there, we fulfilled the process as we go through. That particular property is what we call a project-based rental assistance property. So we were able to successfully demonstrate that we achieved that year of stabilization, which helps to lay the groundwork now for our last phase, which is our sitter phase to be developed. In these first 3 phases that were redeveloped on the south end of town, and as I look around the dais, I believe many of you have had the chance to tour that particular property. We've had 3 phases thus far that have yielded an investment of over $75 million roughly into our local economy by way of construction, subcontractors, and more, in helping to bring those to reality, in addition to the support that we've received from HUD to make those programs possible. And last but not least, one of the most notable statistics that I like to look at is how many hours did our staff invest in themselves. And this last year, we had 5,600 hours invested in ongoing education. These are trainings provided by NARO. This includes our board as well that undergoes these trainings for their certification, our property managers, our maintenance technicians. These particular sessions are offered not only at a local level, but a state and national level. So we are very intentional in making sure that we take the time to invest in our staff, keeping up with the laws and regulations as they change, not only at a local level, but a federal level, and ensuring that we continue to lay the groundwork for serving our clients into the future. I made mention of Crawford Townhomes and the phase 4 that we are looking at, and there's a little bit of a video that will play here. And as it does that, I want to just share with you, this is one of the most notable projects on the horizon for the agency. What you are viewing right now is the completion of our Crawford Townhomes during the construction. But if you look to the north, that is our Mountain View Townhomes and our Upland Townhomes. This particular shot that you see on your screen right now is in addition to the work that was being done on Crawford specifically. The Crawford Townhomes offer a total of 49 units. 8 of those are 1 bedroom, 27 2 bedroom, 12 3, and 2 4 bedrooms. As we look to round out the development on this particular property, the last 4th phase will go where you see some of our existing units now in place. And if you've driven down Prairie, you'll know what I'm talking about and what we're working on right now to round out that entire development with 220 townhomes on that particular property. Uplands was a total of 72. Mountain View was a total of 51. Crawford was a total of 49. And now we have our last and 4th phase, which will be a total of 48 units brought on board. So we have been working diligently with HUD. It is a process that we always have to go through to receive the proper permissions and the proper authorizations to take those units down, if you will, in our system and prepare them for what I will call transformation, if you will. And that allows us to begin the work on the site. As you can see, we not only are talking about the structure, but also the infrastructure. So we have made investments in the infrastructure of the property with electrical, with sewer and water, all of those different pieces that also grow with the community and adding on. What this has helped to spur in some of the surrounding areas is further development for some of the other facilities that are there. Specifically, the property that the Boys and Girls Club operates out of right now on the south side is another one of those properties that we are looking at with that potential of how we develop to ensure that we are serving our community in the long run. Many of our families in the area benefit from services of the Boys and Girls Club. So they're yet another partner that we have along with the Pueblo Southside Child Daycare Center that is housed there. So this is just an example of the work and the investment made. In addition to, now that these are stabilized and in our property portfolio, this is the work that our staff, our maintenance crew and our property managers going out to work with our clients to make sure that they are housed and taken care of and that these are preserved for the foreseeable futures. The original units were brought to the community in 1952. And those particular ones have served our community well, but we realize that it's time to make some investments. So this is just a little bit of that aerial shot. And I want to thank Jessica Valdez and her husband, Paul, for helping to do this aerial shot for us and provide some of that footage. We appreciate it very much. So one of the things that we look at to the future is how do we continue this phase? We build out that 4th phase. We bring about those 48 units to serve our community. And this blends into where we headed now in 2026. As we round out 2025, it's hard to believe that we're already talking about that. But as we look to the future, our effort and our goal is to continue to work on the engagement initiatives with our HUD Denver field office. Back in 2024, we actually did an outreach event where we hosted it at the Pueblo Convention Center. We invited in all of the landlords, not only now that we have in our portfolio, but also landlords that maybe wanted to learn a little bit more about the Section 8 program and what that meant. This was an opportunity to not only dispel myths, but also to give them a chance to meet our staff, to talk about how this program works and what it would mean for their particular property should they want to get involved with that particular one. We continue to work with our partners on combating crime and drug use activities on our properties. We certainly realize that as a partner and a neighbor in the community, we are not immune to those issues. I want to thank the police chief and his staff and the mayor's office. They have always been responsive. And anytime we've had an issue that we're just not quite sure where to go and what to do because it's an issue that's beyond our realm or capability of training, they have always been diligent in helping to respond to that. And we realize we still have a lot of work to do. But we are a willing partner and we are willing to come to the table, sit at the table, roll up our sleeves and ensure that we fulfill and do what we have to, not only to be good neighbors, but to fulfill our mission to offer safe and affordable housing units to our community. So please know that we stand at the ready. And while that is something that we continue to do internally, working with our legal team and others to ensure that that process addresses whatever may be brought forward through our property management team. And if we have to go the route of an eviction, we will certainly have to do that. But our staff is very diligent in working to make sure that we are able to weed through all of that information that comes to our office. We also want to continue our work with the state agencies that we are partnering with to expand beyond Pueblo. We have a lot of other housing agencies south of Pueblo that have leaned upon us at times for guidance or input on programs. And in some cases, we have residents that have a desire to relocate themselves or their family there at some point, or vice versa. They're coming to Pueblo for more opportunity. So I believe strongly in ensuring that we have not only strong communication ties, but we have strong partnership ties with those agencies that can help our residents or the residents of those communities that can find help and support here in Pueblo. So we very much value those partnerships when we talk about the Trinidad Housing Authority or the Huérfano County Housing Authority and others that are a little bit smaller, but still are on the same mission of us of making sure to provide housing for their communities respectively. Expanding our partnerships in support of those surrounding communities, as I mentioned, is key as well. So as we look to the future and there's changing guidance that comes from HUD, we look to those same partners about what does this mean for the future in serving our families and making sure that what we offer in terms of safe and decent housing is the basis for a strong and thriving economic development or an economic community as well, with jobs and other things. So the two of these things, or all of these things, if you will, go hand in hand in our opinion. And last but not least, we also want to talk about the advocacy work that our agency has done. We are a part of NARO, which is the National Association of Housing Redevelopment Officials, and specifically, we are a part of the Colorado chapter. I have the great honor and pleasure of serving as the president of that state association with the support of my colleagues. And what we've done over the last year and a half is we took the first step, or for the first time in NARO's history, we deployed a lobbyist on our behalf of housing agencies across the state to help ensure that as legislation is being taken up, that our voice is heard as it relates to what that impact will be at a local level, at a ground level within the unit. And Mr. Gary Quintana, who's here with us tonight, serves as that liaison to that particular committee, loves and enjoys the review of those bills and all of that. So he really helps our staff to stay in tune with that, but also to further that voice when it comes to the legislature. So please know that in reaching out, we are there to be a partner with that effort as well. So thank you to Mr. Quintana for his support and to our NARO team. You may have heard that I also mentioned last year that we hosted the 2025 NARO conference, the Colorado NARO conference here in Pueblo. It was a huge success, a lot of great feedback. People loved our community. And all I kept saying is, well, why wouldn't you? Look at what this beautiful Riverwalk has to offer. Look at our properties that we were able to tour. People just so enjoyed our community. I can't tell you how many times I had colleagues that would share with me their experience when they went to one of our local restaurants. And what it all came back to was the people. And we know that that has been one of our most beautiful assets, is how kind and caring and embracing our community is. And also how innovative in some cases with the work that's being done. So we were very proud to help showcase that here in our community. And as a result of that, the board took action and said, we want to go back next year. So they will be here for our 2026 conference that will be held May 11th through the 13th. So we do have members of our staff that are on that host committee serving that, offering ideas, looking at other ways that we can take these individuals that attend the conference and get them into the community itself. So we are very proud of that representation that we were able to offer to the state level. This particular one will also have some regional participation. So we very much look forward to hosting that here in Pueblo yet again. So mark your calendars, open invitation for all to attend May 11th through the 13th. And with that, council members, I just want to close with a thank you. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for your support of the agency and representing neighborhoods across our community. And know that as we look to the future, you have a partner here within our agency to ensure that we are not only good neighbors, but we are good stewards of the resources that we have to preserve housing for generations to come. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you. Council, any questions? Any other comments? I just like to, I'm sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez and Mr. Trujillo, for that presentation. It's always a fun time to hear what you guys are doing, because it is a lot. It feels like you guys just were here, but look at all the information that's new. I have a couple questions. So $75 million economic impact for the first 3 phases is certainly a huge number. And it's something, Stephen, when we were talking about the impacts of redoing, that area, I didn't even factor in, the construction costs and all of that good stuff. So when you guys are doing your last phase, do you have a projected expected number for the economic impact for that last phase?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Martinez. At this point, I don't. That is a part of the process at the beginning. We're at the beginning stages of that. So we are working through the abatement of the properties as they exist now. Here in about the first quarter of next year, we will begin that process of doing the economic outlook, deploying the consultants that help with that. All of this has to follow the procurement regulations as well. So Ms. Jessica Valdez and others will be helping to line that up. We were waiting to get that permission from HUD with the deed of trust that we had to record to get to that point. So I don't quite have the numbers, but I don't expect them to be anything less than what the first three phases have been. So I would project that that number will grow significantly, and I'll be sharing with you what that final phase will look like.
Yeah, that's great. So when you, Stephen, when you say it'll commence at the first quarter of 2026,
Mhm.
the last phase is gonna, if I remember correctly, was 4 phases.
Correct.
It's gonna start first quarter.
Correct. So
Okay.
at that point, what our team does is we go through the whole process. We put a team together and we begin looking at, is this going to be a project-based voucher, project-based rental assistance? What are the different areas that we have to look at? Demolition, what is the composition? So we also have market studies that go through and take place as well to confirm that while some of this data may have came, from 5 years ago, we know that a lot can happen in between then. So we reassess some of those figures to ensure that what we are about to embark upon in putting together the capital stack, pursuing those dollars at a state level or at a federal level, or putting in some of our own resources, are truly going to be geared towards what our community is needing at that point in time. So that'll all begin at the beginning of 2026 as we start that.
Okay. And then so the last time that you came, I feel like you were just about to have the landlord meeting
Mhm.
with everyone.
Mhm.
Did you see an increase in Section 8 vouchers from that?
We have seen some interest kind of ebb and flow through the years. There's a lot of different factors. We were not able to host a landlord outreach event this particular year, and that was due to restrictions on travel from our HUD representatives for the Denver field office. But we have continued to produce some information through our social media or just through our networks and channels and our inspectors talking. We've talked at SCARA luncheons and other community luncheons with some of this, and we've seen, 1 month we'll have a lot of interest and then it'll kind of die off and then that'll peak again. So we continually have information coming through, and that goes to our Section 8 department.
Okay. And then my last question, Stephen, or it's maybe just a comment, that the city is looking at proactive legislation around potentially fixing the Prop 123 formulas. Melissa has been a huge champion around making sure that, of course, the city can get our Prop 123 funds, which are, for affordable housing. And
Correct.
the formula is not necessarily going to be friendly to a community like ours that has a really, low AMI to begin with. So we're looking at proactively changing that legislation for this next 2026 session. And because our interests are very much aligned with making sure that we, need the 123 funds.
Correct.
As we're starting that conversation, which we have right now with our lobbyists, I wonder if that would be a good potential collaboration or.
Absolutely.
I don't know what that looks like so far, but it's a mental note to make sure that our lobbyist team is reaching out to you about,
Yes.
moving forward.
Absolutely. And we welcome that. That is certainly, building synergy is something that I think could benefit us all. So thank you for that.
Council Flores, please.
Yes, thanks for the report. It's good to see all of you.
You as well.
The new bill that was just passed several months back, how do you think that's going to affect HUD nationally? And of course, we know that the state of Colorado is suffering in their budget, but have you done any analysis of how that might affect our local housing authority?
Well, and I apologize, Councilman Flores. What bill are you referring to
The
specifically?
big, beautiful bill.
Ah, thank you.
I think everybody knows it by that moniker.
Yeah.
I have another name for it, but
So again, thank you for the question, Councilman Flores. We are right now going through that. We actually are working with the National Office of NARO and our Denver field office to evaluate what some of those impacts may be. A lot of what's proposed is in essence, shifting where the resources come from for the support of specific programs. In some cases, it's shifting those resources to a state level and putting in place a different requirement that we may have to adhere to have access to those resources. What that looks like or what the true impact will be is something that we're still in the process of evaluating right now. But I'd be happy to meet with you one-on-one once we've completed that and I get some more information from the national office as well.
yeah, when you look at the articles and the guy that's in charge of HUD now.
Yeah.
he keeps diverting the question to the fact that they're giving tax benefits to low-income individuals, which is going to make it easier, I guess, to buy a house. But he doesn't talk about the investment into new housing, and I'm really concerned about that.
Right.
And I don't know, do you have any statistical information locally about, do you keep statistics about the Pueblo County market? And if money was no object, what kinds of numbers would we be looking at that people would be you'd be getting more vouchers?
Mhm.
You would be building more property to fill that void.
Yeah.
Do you have any information regarding that?
We do have some statistical data that we maintain at our office. Obviously, we rely upon historical data, whether it be wait lists, whether it be current data that we have. We monitor some of that. Our system has the ability to run some of the data as it relates to income levels. And we use that in our conversations about, talking about what resources we would need at a local level or what types of resources can be most beneficial. For example, when we start talking about the fourth phase, this is the type of data we lean on to determine what type of program. When we use the word housing, knowing that there's a multitude of different programs there, what program is of most need right now to our community with what we're facing? Part of the challenge is also that the data changes very quickly from month to month, year to year. So we are getting more sophisticated and using our system more heavily. Our staff is, and that's part of our training that we invest in order to run that. At a national level, and I can actually share with you some of the statistics that have been run specifically for Colorado. So NARO actually deploys some of their lobbyist team as well as some of their team members to run that data. And so when we go to Washington, D.C., for example, every spring, and we meet with our elected delegates in D.C., we talk about some of these issues about what certain bills, the implication or the impact will be. As a matter of fact, on this most recent trip, Ms. Sanchez was able to accompany us on that. And we were able to share that information from a local level, but now at a national level of what those program changes would mean. So I can follow up with you on the one-pagers that were developed that we've used as the talking points for that after tonight's meeting.
Is there a long list of people waiting for a voucher? Do you have a number that's out there? And I think it's also, it's two numbers. It's the number that you have now, but I think a lot of people have given up on that. Just simply because there hasn't been additional vouchers in the community, but I know that list sometimes is pretty long.
It can be. And sometimes what we see is when there is, economic uncertainty, obviously it doesn't create a space by which families or individuals want to feel comfortable leaving the home that they're in to try and pursue something else. And in some cases, there might be job loss involved. So there's a lot of different factors that impact a family's decision-making as to whether or not they pursue home ownership or try and move to that next level. So as a result of that, we do see in some cases people staying in place, which leads to the long wait time that we have on some of our lists. With some of the programs we have put into our annual plan that HUD approved, that we're moving away from the wait list particular process and we're going more to a lottery system. So if and when a property has openings, we refer to that lottery system, and that's actually a process that's overseen by Mrs. Rivas and her team. But as it stands today, we have some statistics that I can share with you. Roughly all of the different properties also have their own list, because as I mentioned, they're their own program. They have a specific wait list that they may have to follow, or different qualifications that individuals in the community would have to meet. But in total, we're probably looking at about 1,900 that come through those different wait lists, a variety of different ways. The data that's been shared with my office in terms of, all of our properties. So that's in combination together.
It's a big number.
Yeah.
My last question has to do with the concept of home ownership.
Right.
And at one time, as I recollect, your Oakshire project actually put people in houses, and you had a formula that if
Right.
they stayed there long enough and they cared for the property, that after a 15-year period, as I recollect, or
Mhm.
maybe longer, I don't remember,
No, you're right.
that the individuals would actually own the property. And it seems to me that the biggest problem these days, not only the interest rate, but the amount of the mortgage payment. And I understand that it's been alleviated by actually listing the ground under a $1 lease, so that the cost of the improved land basically is not part of the house payment. it, and I don't know whether Oakshire was structured that way, but do you have any plans of getting more involved in assisting people in getting into a house where you're facilitating that and not necessarily renting or providing a voucher?
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Councilman Flores. What I can tell you is that Oakshire development was just that. It was designed with the intent of if the tenant at the time of coming into the unit met all of those particular requirements, one of which was to reside in the home for more than 15 years, they would be eligible or have the first option to purchase it. And of the 50 homes that were built out there, I'd say roughly about half have actually successfully completed that since the year 2001, 2002. And we do have the parcels of land behind that particular property that have already kind of been zoned for additional development. So this is actually one of the topics that when our board meets later this year to have a strategic discussion, will be on the docket about, in addition to phase 4 that we have going on with the redevelopment, what might be the opportunity for this program. And obviously one of the key partners in that development was Chaffa. And so we've worked closely with them about what the potential might be to bring something like that about. If what we've learned in this first program still has merit today, what changes might there have to be, or what other opportunities might there be in pursuing something like that now? In addition to that, we do have a home ownership program that falls under Mr. Moore's leadership within the agency right now that helps individuals who are on our Section 8 program position themselves for home ownership as well. So there's a variety of different ones. And what I'll end with is also a conversation that we recently started having with some other community agencies whose goal is home ownership as well, and determining if we can create a variety of different pipelines by which individuals might have to access and reach that end goal of home ownership as well.
Great.
So,
Well, thank you.
thank you, Mr.
For
Flores.
being here.
Absolutely.
Council Maestri.
Thank you guys for coming in this year and updating us. I really like your proactive approach with the policing, that communication, that line of communication is always good, especially when you have a large property that you're having to cover. Did I miss something? And maybe I did. Do you have security also on site?
We do not have full-time security. However, we do have a security contract, and that particular contract allows us to help, kind of set up a rotation of their services throughout all of our properties. They have been a great partner and communicative with us if there's any issues. And if our property managers discover or hear of issues, we try and place a focus or an emphasis. That particular service is somewhat costly from year to year, but we realize that that's an investment that we need to make. But the other area that we're also investing in is some additional technology in our buildings, additional cameras, additional equipment that can not only support a security firm or a security entity, but also support our managers in setting up safe environments. So that is something that we're evaluating and possibly utilizing our capital funds to help us make those investments, especially at our high-rise properties, where we have a lot of people that are coming and going throughout the day, visiting family or what have you, to really make sure that they feel safe going outside of their unit. So, but we do deploy at a minimum that security contract and work with them to set up a rotation on all the properties.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, Council Latino.
I want to thank you both for coming this evening, and I had the opportunity to tour the project on the south side and was very impressed.
Thank
with
you.
Everything.
Thank you.
The diversity in terms of the community, one bedroom, 2 bedroom, et cetera.
Yeah.
And the staff is absolutely wonderful. And so I congratulate you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Latino. We appreciate it very much.
Anybody? You good, Joe? I just have to close it if there's anybody got anything else. But, a lot of folks come in here and they talk about teamwork. And what you guys exemplify to me, the team that you have here, man, we need more of this. You guys are pros, just for what it's worth. I don't know if that means much, but I just want to thank you personally for the way you're handling yourselves and the leadership team you've got. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it very much. Thank you for your time tonight. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay. Up next, we've got item agenda C, HSPPR, so I have to get straight, contract agreement and 2026 budget. We've got Melissa Cook, Director, Department of Housing and Citizen Services. Danny Nunn, Director of Finance. We've got a 15-minute presentation. Throw your mics on, guys. We're good. It's all yours.
All right, great. Thank you for helping us. Okay, first, just a little bit of background. As you all may know, we are in active contract negotiations with a lot of our different partners. The Humane Society of the Peak region is one of those. I do see we have quite a bit of representation from them behind us in the seats behind us. So appreciate them coming down, but wanted to just first of all say thank you to HSPPR and the great work that they do. They've been a tremendous partner to the city of Pueblo for many years. And we're hopeful that we can continue that partnership well into the future. So a little bit of background. The HSPPR contract, it is a joint city and county venture. Our goal together is to ensure humane, efficient, and cost-effective services for both the residents and the animals within the city and the county. The building that they are in, the facilities are both the city and a county-owned building. So the city of Pueblo actually owns the land and the county owns the physical building itself. It was determined many years ago that the city and county would split the contract. 60% is to be paid by the city and 40% is to be paid for by the county. Previous years, I did go ahead and take a look at the funding from 2021 until now. In 2021, the total contract amount was at almost $2.3 million. As you see, you can see the city's allocation and the county's allocation. So it has went up, of course, since then. We would expect that it goes up. The request this year was actually a 61% increase from 2021. Additionally, you can see that there was an additional year in 2024, as everybody here may remember, that there was an additional $100,000 that was funded to the contract. And these additional dollar amounts that you see in 2022, 2023, and 2024 are shared expenses that are repairs on the facilities or the equipment that are shared between the city and the county. So this year, as you all are aware, there was a request made from City Council to staff to reduce the budget by 15%. So in the mayor's proposal, that's what we've tried to do. There's been a request to all the city departments to reduce by 15%, as well as the non-departmentals. And so this year, we did request all of our non-departmentals to cut 15% from the previous year. You can see here, all of the non-departmentals were able to meet that except for two. We had the Pueblo Zoo and the Humane Society of the Pikes Peak region. The Pueblo Zoo requested a 5% increase from last year. We have also been engaging in negotiations and communications with them, and we do think that we have come to a resolution that they will be reducing their contract ask from last year. So we are very close to that contract being finalized. And then the one last one that we have remaining is, of course, this contract that we're here discussing today, HSPPR. And so what we really tried to do during this, it was really important for the city to try to identify what is the difference between the shelter operations and the contract work that the city is paying for versus their mission-driven work. We went through this same process just recently with the Pueblo shelter, the homeless shelter. As you all may remember, we actually, stripped down everything and said, what are those mission critical things that we need, functions that we need to do in order to make sure that nobody, passes away in the elements outside and that they have a place to come inside. And so we were able to strip that out. What we are not funding, for instance, the Pueblo shelter, as you'll remember, is those additional things. The wraparound services, the case management services, case navigation, et cetera. That is what our nonprofit partners are, in that situation, what we would expect that they do. And so here we're trying to replicate that same thing. And over the last few months, we've been having meetings with HSPPR to try to identify what are those true mission critical city functions that the city would do as a city department versus what are those additional mission driven or what the Humane Society calls the humane part of their work. So really, what the city functions are going to be your animal law enforcement and the shelter operation. So physically operating the shelter. The way that we're looking at this is through the lens of some of those additional services, which of course have a great benefit to the community, but are not necessarily those mission critical services, would be things like the trap, neuter, return program, any philanthropy that HSPPR is opting to do. HSPPR also does offer public veterinary services. So on a walk-in basis, I believe at both the shelter and they have an additional clinic. They offer, their own spay neuter services as well as, end of life services for animals. And then of course they run their clinic out of PetSmart. So those are, the way that we were viewing it, completely separate from the contract, the actual functionalities that would be a city arm if they were to come into the city. So we did have several meetings with HSPPR to discuss this. We had a meeting on August 8th and September 3rd, as well as a variety of email communication. During this, there were a few things that we looked at. HSPPR, we talked about possibly eliminating dead animal pickup as a way to reduce the cost of the contract, limiting after hours calls or not working 24 hours, as well as possibly the city taking on those nuisance calls, barking dog calls, those sorts of things to be brought into code enforcement. HSPPR proposed us one option where we could eliminate the animal law enforcement and provide the sheltering services only with animal law enforcement and then becoming a part of the city. And then the city really, we've spent a lot of our negotiations and a lot of our time trying to understand the offset of potential revenue collected from the shelter operations and whether or not that should be credited back into the contract. And so what we did is we looked at the financials that were provided to us from HSPPR. Again, our goal was to separate the mission-driven activities and identify those critical city functions. And so in looking at this, you can see that, so these are their actual financials from June of 2024 through May of 2025. These are going to differ a little bit from the proposals that they gave us because these are actuals. These are not their proposed. We have the contract services, which are really the city contract, both revenues and expenses that are going to be associated with the city contract. And then we have the humane services, which are really those more mission-driven functionalities. And so in reviewing this, we know that some of the revenues that are created by HSPPR, they are solely HSPPRs. You can see here that they have shelter revenue, veterinary services revenue, things like fundraising and estates. We would expect that stays with HSPPR to do their humane work, their mission-driven work. Where we've spent a lot of time communicating is around the sheltering revenue. So as you can see in 2020, during this time from June 24 to May 25, the contract itself, the city or the contract, the city-county contract paid for 74% of the expenses associated with sheltering. But you can see that we were not credited back any of the revenue for that associated expense. And then the other one that we really focused on and tried to understand was the same for veterinary expenses, where the city pays for 59.43% of the total veterinary expenses that come through this contract, but we were not credited back with any shelter revenue for that. And so what could that be? We know that animals come into the shelter in many different ways. And so I tried to look at this from like a cycle of an animal intake. So you have the animal law enforcement goes out and picks up the animal. The animal is then received at the shelter where there are expenses to house that animal, food, water, any sort of medical that the animal may need. While they're there, the animal would likely be spayed or neutered and receive those shots. And then hopefully, I know they don't all end this way, but hopefully the animal would eventually be adopted. And when they're adopted, they would, receive that adoption fee. And so, the way that city staff has been looking at this and where we really don't understand why these revenues aren't credited back to the contract is because 1, 2, and 3, all of the expenses associated with this cycle are an expense of the contract. But the revenue created goes directly to HSPPR and does not come in to offset this contract. If that revenue did come in and was offset to the contract, we would be looking at a total contract offset. If you proposed or if you brought those in at the same percentages that the city pays for those expenses, it would be a difference of $725,000 in this contract, which would well exceed the 15% that the city was requesting be reduced. Additionally, we also took a look at the expenses. And again, with that goal of looking and separating the mission-driven activities to those critical city functions, we did have some questions on some of the actual expenses themselves. So there were 2 specific ones: communications, which in our conversations with HSPPR is marketing for the shelter, as well as the volunteers, 46,000. So a total of over $125,000 that we feel would probably be more in line with the mission-driven side, not so much in line with those critical functions of a shelter. The city of Pueblo doesn't, have an advertising budget for us, and it seems out of line with and inconsistent that we would continue to pay for something like that in a contract. And so we did have conversations with HSPPR staff on all of this. With the revenue allocation, we did receive communication back that they do not credit this revenue back to any of the contracts, and so they will not be doing so here. The adoption fees, that again, this is consistent across all of their municipal contracts and it is not negotiable. And so HSPPR, the reason that we're here tonight is because we want to get direction from you all, because HSPPR has said that they will only allow us one additional meeting to go through all of this. And that the options that they've provided us with two options, that those are the only two options that they'll be looking at. You know, we definitely have asked them some questions and are really trying to understand what these expenses are. There may be very valid answers. We still, as city staff, have some questions about these. You know, I think that with a contract this size, we've had the two meetings and then we had several email exchanges that went back and forth. Well, I know that we've been asking a lot of questions. I think that it's for good reason. I think that their board has directed their staff at this point not to continue devoting significant resources to redetailing this contract. And so we're just trying to figure out, you know, how should we move forward? Because we're still somewhat unsure about some of these expenses. And how should we move forward, you know, with all of that information? So the two options that HSPPR has offered is option one. It's a $2.3 million contract overall to be split between the city and the county. This would be for sheltering services only, and the animal law enforcement would be run through the city. And so we would have to absorb that cost within the city. We have not explored what exactly that cost would be within the city. We don't think that it's a great idea at this juncture to explore that with the police department already being understaffed, and we would have to take additional resources away from them. The second option is $3.3 billion. It's roughly a 10%, it's a 9-point-something% increase from last year. And so HSPPR was able to go and identify some revenues for the city as well as reduce some expenses. It is near full services, but it does exclude dead animal pickup. So that dead animal pickup would have to be absorbed within the city of Pueblo's existing infrastructure. We have verified with the Public Works Department that we do have some infrastructure within the city to absorb that. While we don't pick up dogs or cats, that's strictly in this contract. They do pick up small other animals, raccoons and badgers and that sort of thing. So it's done by our streets department. So we did start those conversations, haven't, you know, looked extensively at whether the cost savings in this contract would be equitable to the cost that it would cost us to do in-house. But I know that we do have that infrastructure. So we're still working on that. Yeah, and as I mentioned, HSPPR, they're going to allow us one final question or conversation with questions and answers. So we're hopeful that we can come to them with everything and direction from council of how you all would like to move forward in that final conversation. And so at this point, we're really just trying to seek direction from you. What is it that you want to do? Do you want to accept one of these two options? Do we want to request any additional conversations with them? Is there a counteroffer? We really just need to know council's direction moving forward with this contract.
Council
Yeah.
Flores, please.
I believe that we have to have this this additional meeting. I don't think this is the environment to have it in. I think all of us are handicapped by not having all this information. We're getting a lot of information here tonight, but whatever the structure is of getting together for this last meeting, I'd like to be involved. But I don't think this is the right venue here to, obviously I'd like to see HSPPR stay in Pueblo. They've done an excellent job. If you look at where we were at before they came in and took over, it's like night and day, especially in the area of euthanizing animals. They continue to have save rate that's really on the higher end in the whole United States. So I'd like to propose that we do have this meeting, and I personally would like to be involved because I was involved in this several years ago when we lost him for a period, and then we had to go back and retain them again. So it's an interesting dilemma. I was going to ask the question about what the cost would be for our police department to provide the function, the animal police part of it. But you indicated you didn't have that number, but I think that's going to be important information. And then my last question is, The county obviously also has to be involved in this. I think we're in it together. So they have to be invited to this meeting, along with representatives from the city. So at this stage, you threw a lot of numbers at us. Lots of things are happening here. It seems to me that you guys did a financial analysis of an organization that actually has over 20 contracts within the state of Colorado. They certainly deserve to have their own take on your analysis and whether or not, they have other information that they can supply. So I would like to make the next meeting one that they have a chance to explain why they need this increase. I'd like to see their discussion and their analysis of their own financial statement. And I'd like to do that as soon as we can.
Before I introduce, I should ask for President Ailiff to say a couple of words. Are the folks behind you HSPPR folks? Just want to recognize you guys. You recognized the last crew that was in here, but thank you guys for coming. President Ailiff, please.
Yeah, I pretty much echo what Councilor Flores said. I'm a little confused about the whole process because, we're in the middle of a budget process that is going to come to us next month. And anytime we get a budget, it always has the administration's recommendation. It has the entity's request, the administration's recommendation, and then city council goes back and forth and figures out what they're going to do within the budget. So it's kind of, I understand this budget, this contract that HSPPR has is over when?
12/31. And so we want to give them a reasonable, I know that the budget won't actually be approved until, November when the budget is approved, but we need to give them a reasonable figure of what is likely going to be approved by council so that they can continue, their staffing plan and all of that. That is really the reason. I recognize that this is a little bit backwards from what we traditionally do, but I think that we want to all be on the same page and make sure that what we're going to present, that we have the backing of council when it does come time for the budget approval.
So you're asking us to make a decision or to give you direction when we don't have the whole picture. So if we don't have the whole picture, how can we make a semi-intelligent decision on what direction that we want to go through? So you're taking one contract out of several contracts that we have, whether it be HARP, State Fair, whoever it is, and throw in HSPPR. I mean, we heard from the zoo. We didn't make a decision on the zoo. We just said the zoo's going to, when the budget process happens, city council will decide what they want to do. But quite frankly, I mean, I would find it hard to make a decision without seeing the entire picture of the budget and all of the requests, all of the recommendations, and to see where we go from there. I mean, in the big scheme of things, it would be a critical loss to the community to lose HSPPR. I mean, I get the alternatives, but it's almost incoherent that we would have the police department take over law enforcement, the animal law enforcement. I can see the city and the dead animals and things like that, but I mean, those are all a lot of big questions, but I would just rather see a recommendation from the administration, a request from HSPPR through the budget process, which doesn't it start next month? Aren't our presentations next month?
You'll see the budget on October 14th with the budget work session on the 20th. The reason why we're bringing this one to you is because this is the only non-departmental that didn't agree to do the 15% reduction that city council requested. Everybody else agreed that's going to be the recommendation. That was what council proposed as a 15% budget.
So I'm
But-
confused on that too. When did council decide that we wanted a 15% reduction?
You
in
had
funding
a work
department?
session about 6 months ago in which we went person by person and asked what you would like to see. I believe you're the one that asked for that work session to come forward for
We
budget
asked for a 15% reduction in total expenses.
and operating, because then I came back and told you what that would look like for employees and part-time employees. If you remember, I came back and gave you the second follow-up work session. So the 15% came from, there was 5% thrown out, there was 10% thrown out, 15% was the largest amount. Councilman Gomez threw that number out, and that's the reduction that I asked for across city departments.
So we're not going to see the actual requests of all the other contractual entities. I mean, I know for a fact that the Riverwalk didn't agree to a 15% decrease unless there's been some specific negotiations or whatever.
There has, with the Riverwalk. There was a letter that was sent out to
So
all
we're
the
not gonna see what they
non-departmentals.
requested.
There was a letter that was sent out to all the non-departmentals with city council's request of a 15% reduction. When they submitted their budget request to the city, they had a 15% reduction. We'd be happy to share those with you, but that's what they submitted.
Okay, I'll email you tomorrow what they sent me.
Who?
Harp.
Okay,
Then it was not a 15% decrease.
sure.
Okay. So anyway, that's my dilemma. My dilemma is until you see it in the whole picture, I think it's hard to make a decision one way or the other. But I will say that, you know, personally, I'm 100% supportive of HSPPR. They've done great work. And obviously I was involved in the original debacle and I still have scars from that. And I don't want to go through that again. So that's just me. So that's all I have.
Council Maestri, please.
You know, I think we did say something like 15%. I think that's what some counselors threw out as part of what we could do to get into a balanced budget. So it's going to be interesting if it balances with the 15%. And so, but then again, we're not in charge of creating the budget. And so we don't have all the details exactly. Going to these budget meetings, you're looking at just what's in front of you at that moment, not the budget as a whole. So how you're making it like let's just narrow it down. So you're saying with the monies that we give for the operating expenses regarding the shelter, and then we're giving veterinary services towards that budget, but yet we didn't agree to, the veterinary services aren't part of the contract, the actual contract?
Well, they would be part of the shelter. You know, the expenses would be part of that, absolutely. Because, you know, when an animal comes in there, they have to make sure that it has all of its vaccines, and if it's injured,
Okay.
yes, they would be. What
Okay.
we're trying to understand with the folks from HSPPR that we're, you know, between Danny and myself, still unclear on is why isn't that credited back? And you know, they've told us that they don't do that with any of their other contracts, that it goes to the humane side of their work.
Mhm.
And that's where we really just still don't understand, I think, as city staff. So I mean, that really means then that we're funding that mission driven side of their house, if you would, but
Mhm.
we're not doing that for anybody else within the city. And so is that, I guess maybe that's how I need to explain this, like, is that something that the council here is wanting to do in this? Do we want to look at this contract in its totality? Or do we want to continue down the path that Danny and I have been trying to do of really parsing out those mission critical functions?
Mhm.
You know, you have other nonprofit organizations in town that provide other very important things that we do not fund
Mhm.
and that we did not fund this year, including similar organizations that provide these same type of funding. So does that help for
Oh, yeah,
clarification?
that also, you know, but it also does identify that they're given the resource not only to cover those parts of the contract, but they're also given the resource of the building and the land. They don't, because they don't pay for any of that, correct? It's all included in along with their money. They don't rent it back or anything like that. So they get free facility on top of the operating costs. Is that correct, Danny?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I guess really I appreciate this breakdown because this is a very sensitive subject in this community. Dogs and cats and animals are very important to people in this community and they want to make sure that they're taken care of. At the same time, you know, we're going through some financial setbacks here in the city. We've got to be a tighter budget and, you know, hoping that those partners will tighten their belts too during this time. And I just think the public needs to understand and be aware, depending on where the outcome is on the parties involved. I'm just surprised that the shelter hasn't come forward, just like the zoo did, and they just put it on the table, their side of it. It needs to be public because it is a public meeting and it's public money. That's why their side of it also needs to be stated in public. That's what it's all for transparency for the public. And so is there a reason why they're not coming forward or speaking at the mic?
We've had conversations internally with them. You know, they were not slated on this work session. We came to this work session as a request of council last week to speak here tonight. So I don't know of any, no.
Okay.
If they are prepared and council allows for it, we'd be more
Yeah.
than happy to let them.
Okay. Well, I think we have
Get the work session.
25 minutes left just to get a introduction about what they have to say. Is council willing to do that?
You restate that again so we can understand what you're saying.
I said,
The community wasn't properly noticed about this particular topic. As if this meeting was not properly, the public was not notified that we were going to have a public meeting with HSPPR. And we do a lot of negotiations.
I'm not trying to negotiate. I just want to hear why we've come to it in this manner. This isn't really normal. We usually have a recommendation from the mayor. They come and say what they want, then the mayor gives their recommendation after they've negotiated. And so this isn't like part of the normal process. I'm not trying to negotiate with them, Dennis. I just want to hear what they have to say. But if, you know, council doesn't feel that that's necessary, you know.
I really would like a copy of your presentation tonight. We didn't get it attached to our agenda. I think that's a good starting point.
Let's go to Council Boston. Nice music though.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that information, breaking it down the way you guys did. I know, obviously, you guys are putting a lot of work into this and trying to get the budget down as much as possible. And I do remember similar conversations about a 15% reduction in operating expenses, you know, removal of nonprofits, hiring freezes, some things like that we're going to try to do to help balance the budget. You know, I think that HSPPR does amazing work, and obviously the what we had last time when we couldn't reach some sort of agreement with them was detrimental for the community. But I see a lot of the things that you're saying about their contract and how this works. In every other community, they don't do these same things. Is there any differences between our contract and other communities that they operate in that seem, or do we have access to that information, or is this how all the contracts work with all the communities?
So we don't have access to all of them. Some of their contracts are publicly available and we were able to get, for instance, the one for Colorado Springs, and they're all structured somewhat different. But a lot of them have, you know, very similar type things. So yes, there are similarities, but there's also differences based on how they specifically wanted their contract to be structured.
Okay, is there anything that is different about ours that may be possibly negotiable that would make it better for Pueblo that could be different, or is that something that we've asked? Or
So there's definitely some things, one thing in particular that HSPPR brought up that we're going to explore in the future, but it will not help us with this current contract negotiation. And that is the city helping to enforce like rabies vaccinations, or was it licensing fees? So as they are licensed, those fees do generate revenue that do come back to this contract. So I do think that there are some creative ways that we can all work together to try to do this in the future. But again, it's not going to help with this particular contract.
So it seems like this might be a stepping stone, maybe in the right direction to help kind of get some of those costs mitigated, that we think should be credited back to the city, but at this current point in time, we're not quite there.
They do credit those back, but those are minimal. So there are things that they do credit back. They credit back restitution. Danny, I might have to lean on you for this one.
I think there was also some bond payments as well that they did credit back for us. I think the big question that we have for council is that given the instructions of reducing expenses by 15%, would you like staff to accept the terms being offered by HSPPR, which is basically they've instructed us is sort of their last offer, or do we seek alternates? I think our case is just asking council, is this acceptable to council on increasing the budget by 10% from last year? If it is, great, we can negotiate, close the deal, continue on with our partnership. If it's not acceptable to council, then we're looking for direction in how to tackle that.
So you just said 10%, and then I thought when we had the page up earlier, it said 20.
So their original request was 20%, but as I mentioned, they did go back to the drawing table. They did, I mean, they've been partners at this. They've looked at some things, they've reduced some costs. The 10% includes excluding dead animal pickup from it, so we would have to take on those costs. We're still looking at that, but I think that that's something that we can do. As I mentioned, I've already reached out to our Public Works Department, so yes.
Good.
For now.
I'm just gonna throw one thing in while I got the mic here. I'm not as well versed on this as these other longtime old folks, these pros here on the dog. All I can tell you is what I see, and I almost sensed it without creating a problem here. Do you feel satisfied that you're getting all your questions answered, or do you feel that, and it's difficult because I'm not talking about intent here. I'm just talking about transparency. I almost get a sense from the tone of it that, are we kind of over a barrel? Do you think we're being treated fairly? I mean, I know it's a difficult question in this setting, but I need to ask it because I'm trying to understand the difficulty and why we can't get to around the corner in this thing.
I will say that I think is one of the things that we've had a lot of discussion about, with this revenue. As I mentioned, city staff still we don't quite understand it. And maybe it's just that we still simply are not understanding it. And we're just taking a little bit longer to come around. Or maybe it's that revenue really should be credited back to the contract. We're trying to figure that out. But I think the problem here is that we're going to have to make a decision without, full knowledge of this, because their board chair has instructed their staff to only have one additional meeting with city staff. And so we are not satisfied with the answers that we've received. That doesn't mean that they're doing anything nefarious or that they shouldn't be doing. I don't want to make it sound like that's the case at all. We just don't understand it still. And we would love to have more of that conversation and negotiation. But I don't know that they're willing to do that. Thus far, they've made it known that they were not.
We may not get that answered here, but Councilor Martinez.
In the meetings that you've had with the Humane Society, have you described to them this budget process with both the contracts that we have as well as the city departments? Let me expand. So because our revenue, and let me back up. I love the Humane Society. I think that y'all do great work. I am constantly pushing people. Mark Gala closes meetings by saying, go adopt dogs from the Humane Society. I take my dog to the Whisker Ball every year. Like I love the Humane Society. And the city is in a detrimental crisis right now with the budget, which I'm sure you're aware. So not only do all of the contracts that we have as part of the city, the Humane Society, the zoo, Nature and Wildlife Discovery Center, the Greater Chamber, they've all been told, hey, you need to reduce your ask by 15%. All of the city staff and all of our 21 departments have also been asked to reduce budget requests by 15%. And regardless of, needing to pave roads, we're in a hiring freeze. They've also, been instructed to reduce their expenditures or their budgets by 15%. And so it's not just hey, Humane Society, like you got to reduce the budget. It's a citywide thing for not just our contracts, but for our departments as well. And recognizing that resources and things are also increasing, right? Like, so it puts us in a potentially precarious position when we say, hey, you got to get 15%, and then the zoo and the Humane Society say, these are our offers, of not just a lowered budget, but an increased amount, right? Like it puts us in a precarious position. So I am hopeful that at this follow-up meeting, there can be some transparent conversations around how can we both be good partners, because the city loves the Humane Society. I just want to make sure that we can both be good partners. And it's interesting because, to Councilor Maishu's point, I'm trying to read the Humane Society over here, and look, reading faces and things. And it looks like there might be some frustration or some tension. And so I think that hopefully at this meeting, whenever it happens, there can be some resolution. So that way it is, a win for the city and a win for the Humane Society, because it's our animals, right? Like we got to do it for our animals. But I hope that puts a better picture for the Humane Society in terms of the whole context, right? 15% reduction for everyone.
Would you like to respond? You good? Councilor Martinez? Councilor Maestri, sorry.
I could see where it'd be confusing for outside partners to come up with that 15% reduction, because in the city departments, it's been 15% in operations, is because we're instanced and not in personnel. Well, I'm hoping that the city didn't, these departments have something to do at the end of the day for 2026 if they've cut all their operations in order to keep their employees. But I think that that's a good conversation to have with HSPPR and the zoo, because at this point, the zoo says that they can't keep the doors open. They may not be able to keep the doors open. So if we're offering that courtesy to HSPPR, maybe the zoo also needs to. I could see where outside partners would have concerns with the 15%. And in order to do that, we would have to see the whole budget and how they're coming up with where their spending needs are needing to happen. So thank you.
Councilor Boston?
Thank you, Chair. And there's a lot of uncertainty up in the air right now. And, and as much as we make these cuts, we're actually seeing a decrease in sales tax. And that's, not like we want to do this necessarily, but, that's why the idea of finding new sources for revenue was even talked about, and why the administration even brought forward the idea of a grocery tax and now a general sales tax increase, because even at the rate of making cuts, there's still things that we can't achieve. And at some point, you may have to look at opportunities for increased revenue, whether it, be creative ideas to bring more people to Pueblo, trying to increase the tax base and do things of that matter so that we have more money to fund some things like this. But my final question is there a deadline that we have to hit in order to have an answer for HSPPR, or for an answer for the administration, or is it just the first budget meeting of October? When do we have to have an answer potentially on maybe the direction or an agreement with HSPPR.
They have asked for us to have a decision by September the 30th.
So even if we somehow got a work session in for them to try to talk, that would be the day prior. If we were to try to do something on our currently canceled work session Monday next week. Or well, is not anymore? Just the
Yes, I
executive
believe there's
session.
an executive session that will need to be that night, so we will be having that work session in one form or another
And is currently the only thing scheduled that executive session?
currently. Yes.
So since we are already showing up, I don't know if it would be in the interest of anybody to let them do as the zoo did. Obviously, you can see by the crowd of individuals here. I don't know if that's something the council has interest in, but maybe that could potentially be the meeting where all of us can be there, since we have to have a public notice meeting anyway, in order for multiple people to be there. I don't know if that's an idea that anybody would like to entertain.
Let's move the Council Flores and then Council Mastri.
I really believe that a lot of the questions that are being addressed right now can be answered. This is not the right forum to be negotiating a contract, including a future work session is not the environment either. And I guarantee you that we do not have a deadline at the end of this month with HSPPR. This is a contract that doesn't expire till 12/31. If you really need a date, it would be the date that we pass the budget. That would be the date that we need to be concerned about. And that isn't until the first week in December. So we have some time here, and I think we need to take advantage of this meeting. But when you're negotiating a contract, that is much different than, there's been a lot of questions that have been asked. I think I may have a couple of the answers to that, but I don't believe that we should be discussing this in this forum. And I'm all for having this secondary meeting, which I think they've agreed to.
Council Mastri.
I think, and I guess what I was looking at for this evening was not necessarily a negotiation, but just to hear their needs. We don't know what their needs are. And I don't know why we have to do that and behind closed doors. And so that's what I was looking to hear is what are their needs? Because it's really not up for us here on the dais to be negotiating their contract. That's always come out of the mayor's office. And like I said, they put a line item there and they decided and give us a recommendation. But when they come to the work sessions in the past, they tell us those needs and then we understand what their needs are when we see that number, and that hasn't happened. We haven't given them that opportunity, and that's why I've asked to have a more hear from them. You see what I mean?
Do we want to move it towards, a work session on Monday, for Monday?
Schedule it for Monday.
That, be okay with everybody? All right, let's schedule it for Monday, work session. Does anybody have anything else? I think we're actually going to be on time. Thank you. We're adjourned. 7:07, what time?
7:05.
7:05. Thank you. Make it 7:07.